Welcome to the Protecting Your Nest podcast. So many of those who listen to this podcast have heard the healing message of reducing carbohydrates in our diet. But imagine how many more have never heard this message and are unnecessarily suffering from chronic medical conditions that can be reversed. If we are to make a difference and reach more people, we will need more messengers sharing the good news that a life of chronic illness and the use of medication may not be needed for most of us. We need more soldiers spreading this message. That's why I am so happy to welcome a guest who has used his many talents to share this message of hope that comes from lifestyle changes. Today's guest is Charles Maddox. Charles has had a diverse number of roles and accomplishments. And just to name a few, he started out starring in a movie by the name of The Summer of Ben Tyler, where he was featured. He's also known as the indigent chef, creating tasty nutritions and, most importantly, affordable foods, particularly when I think about the community I serve, and you got to make it affordable. He's also a celebrity chef, and he's on a mission to spread the healing message that food is medicine. He's been on the Today Show, Martha Stewart, CNN, Dr. Oz show, and even a TEDx speaker. That's one of my goals, Charles, is to be a TEDx speaker. So you got to give me your tips. He's also been a spokesperson for the American Diabetes Association. I've actually spoken for them many times at the McCormick Place in Chicago, and when they have their annual festivity. He's authored books including Eat Cheap but Eat Well, a beautiful kids book, Diabetes and Healthy Eating, and a budget-friendly, fresh, and local diabetes cookbook. So it's just so nice to have a person on the planet who just understands that you can teach these concepts while educating folk out here. And he was inspired by his legendary. He's the nephew of Bob Marley, and it just really it's nice to have somebody like that to inspire you. So that's why I wanted him to come to this episode, because his work and life experiences has really led him to understand and appreciate that chronic medical conditions like type 2 diabetes can be reversed.
Yeah.
I'm not afraid to say reverse, which is really critical. I'm not afraid to say it. And he's highlighting that in his docu-series focused on using keto to reverse type 2 diabetes. So, Charles, it is my pleasure to welcome you to Protecting Your Nest.
Thank you so much for having me, Tony.
Well, it's my pleasure. And I must admit, the real reason why I wanted you to join today's episode is because you're a Buffalo Soldier.
Dreadlock Rasta.
There you go.
Fighting on arrival. We're fighting for survival. If you know your history, well, you will know where you're coming from. Who the Dreadlock Rasta? Who a Buffalo Soldier?
Woo!
Yes,
Oh,
man. Yes,
I
man.
can go to heaven now. I can
With
go to
him.
heaven. So thank you. And what a great way to start our discussion, honoring Bob Marley, who has not only inspired you, obviously, but so many people in the world. And having landed on the shores of Jamaica, I love that country. I love the people, their energy. And I just really thank God that the fruits of that country include greats like Bob Marley. And of course, your mom and you and the rest of the crew. So happy about that. So let's get started and let's have a conversation. And
For sure.
very excited again to have you there. And you have achieved quite a bit just based on that intro. That's pretty obvious. And but I'm curious, when you think about something about yourself that maybe the average person wouldn't know. Is there anything that comes to mind?
That's a good question. Tony, I think one of the things like my uncle, I wanted to be able to leave something. The time that we have here is really short. And I didn't want to ever pass this time and go forgotten. I mean, yeah, we have our immediate couple of friends and loved ones who may do some posts on Facebook and Twitter for us and so on and so forth. But I wanted to be able to leave something that could stand the test of time. And I think I'm achieving that with some of the projects that I'm working on, right? And and the work that I've left and plan on leaving behind. So I think that's one of the things that really motivates me is leaving something for someone else, that I can inspire someone, that I can motivate someone. That I get a lot of messages, Tony, every day that say, what, Charles, thank you so much for what
Mm,
you did, whether it's that project, this project, whatever it may be. And it's not about a pat on the back. It's about knowing that, my uncle once said, if this life is just for me, I don't want it. And I really feel the
mm.
same way. If this life is just for me, I don't want it. So
I,
that's
I love
that's my
that.
story.
I love that. It reminds me of when I was working with a leadership coach, and he said, you got to figure out why you were born.
Mm,
Why are you here?
mm.
And I really didn't have an answer for him in that moment.
Yeah,
That's a deep question, right?
yeah,
But but I did know at the time that I had a skill set and a
yeah,
passion for diabetes and obesity,
yeah,
and so for me it just said, you know what, I gotta spread the healing message of
yeah.
reversing obesity and diabetes. So I'm trying to save millions of people, and that's
Mm,
why I had to kind of leave the clinic and do that work, but then spread the message beyond. And that's why I'm doing this podcast and YouTube. So I'm really, as you are doing the work you're doing, using these forms of expression
mm,
to spread the message. So yeah, I love that, and I also love Jamaica. I love
mm.
Jamaica. I love its culture, and I love obviously Bob Marley. I'm so happy you were able to give me a few notes, show me
Amen.
your skills with music. Glad you did it, because if I had kept singing, they probably would have stopped the podcast. but
Yeah.
uh, but I love music. I love what he's done. But I'm curious. Tell me a little bit about how Jamaica has shaped you as the person you are. I mean, what influences has that culture had on your life?
I would say that coming from, we have to remember our simple background, right? No matter where you are, what position you are, we're all just made of very simple things. And so I think allowing Jamaica to roll me as a simple man who is on a mission that is at times much greater than I am. And I think really that's it. A humble man, a simple man, who's just trying to do something special for others, and at the same time enjoy this little bit of slice of life that we call living, and the best we can, because we don't know what tomorrow may bring. So, and of course,
Mm,
the spirituality, right? Us from the Caribbean, we tend to be very spiritual, and put our trust in a higher power, and what that might be, I don't know,
mm.
but I know it's something greater than me. So
That's purposeful. So we kind of, the first theme was having purpose,
yeah,
and the second theme keeping it simple. I practice simplicity
yeah,
in my practice. Even when I talk about dietary things, and I say low carb or whatever, I said
yeah,
just keep your carbs under
yeah,
50 or keep it under 20. We
mm,
don't have to. You don't have to take keto supplements and all that stuff. Just keep it simple,
yeah, yeah,
right? And
yeah,
then having a spiritual center,
mm,
some people God, some people the universe,
mm,
whatever you have to have something bigger than you to rely on. So I do believe that that's very important. So I love that as well. So let's go into why. a keto doc, a low carb doc, would
Mm.
have you on. So I want to
Mm.
do it. So I want to have a little bit of your story, shared, and I just want to understand, what inspired you to do this work. I know there's various layers to that, but as it relates to, reversed,
Yeah.
I want to hear a little bit of how you got motivated to do that work.
The first season, Tony, that aired on Discovery, I think that, man, we had all the great intentions. I wasn't as educated as far as keto and intermittent fasting and things of that nature. I did know that mentality and also as far as mental health was key. Um, in changing who we are, right? We have to be able to really hone in and focus. There's a lot of people who are dealing with certain things. Even I, to be honest, suffer with a food disorder, and I say that
Mm,
because Tony, every day I'm starting my diet over, and I end up doing things that I shouldn't be doing, and it's I find myself literally just trying to figure out what the heck is going on with me. Why am I doing this? Why am I, fasting for a day and then all of a sudden at night eating some stuff I should have no business eating at 12 o'clock? So we focus heavily on the mental health side of things. And then when I got into keto, I realized that it was a game changer. I don't think I did it right at first because there's so much information and so much misinformation that I probably didn't do it the right way. And then kind of got back into it and saw tremendous results. I saw and realizing that, Tony, if you're cutting out the carbs, the starch, and the sugars, I mean, you could only uh, find some health benefits in that. And I realized that I wanted to do, Tony, another season of Reverse because of the success. Because at the end of the day, even though I wasn't the most, I hate to say, educated on everything, I saw people that were on the show that lost 40, 50, 60 pounds and came off medication just because we cared, just because they changed their diet, just because
mm,
they focused on their health. So I realized that, you know what, if we teamed up with the best of the best in keto and intermittent fasting, that if we did this, that we really had a tool to be able to save millions of people's lives and be able to understand why keto and intermittent fasting really works and the benefits of it. And I look at what we've done with the season 2 of Reverse right now, which we just finished filming in Costa Rica. And Tony, it's mind blowing. It's mind blowing. And I don't mean to keep going on, but I have to thank some of the amazing people, Dr. Ken Berry, who is, when I say Ken is not just, I think a lot of people see Ken and they probably see him from his videos, but when I say that guy is somebody you want to just be he's a heck of a guy. He's a heck. I mean, we had so much fun. He's so personable, but so knowledgeable. Um, Maria Emmerich, who is a genius in what she does as far as recipes. Jason Fung, Dr. Vega, Dr. The list goes on. Keto Mojo, Keto Child. I mean, the list goes on. But Tony, what I've seen in the results of these people since the show, I can't wait for people to see what this show ends up being because we can't make this up. And Tony, I wish I would have known this years and years ago, because what we do now at times affects us many years later, and at times we can't take it back. right? Sometimes the damage that we've done is I hate to say is irreversible. So, and we don't
Mm-hmm.
want to be sick out here. That's one thing, we don't want to be sick, and especially with type 2 diabetes, not based on what we eat or what we drink. If I'm sick because
Mm-hmm.
of bad food choices or bad health choices, that man, that's something I don't want to have to live with. So,
Mm. The key word is choices, and I don't blame anybody for not having the knowledge. You started by saying that, if I had only known, and if I only, the rest of the world still don't know.
yeah, yeah,
Most people who are borderline diabetic don't know.
yeah.
So we have a lot of work to do, and even this processed food addiction. Dr. Robert Cyrus and Dr. Joan Iflin, they're both experts on addiction, food addiction, and there are still people who don't even believe such a thing exists at all.
Yeah.
And so I have talked to Dr. Joan Iflin. She's been a guest. I'm going to probably get Dr. Robert Cyrus on just to kind of create awareness. And at the end of the day, the Dr. Ken Berries of the world, the Dr. Fungs of the world are not known enough, as
Mm.
much as they have followers and they're writing books. Not enough people know, and that's kind of why we're here.
Let me jump in real quick, Tony. And I'm being honest with you. We should actually, and people like yourself, not even so much me, Dr. Ken, Jason, there should be rock stars. Hear me out. Rock stars of health and wellness. We will throw up all kind of things for this pop star, that rapper, this singer, that whatever. But when we talk about people who can save a life, we should be rock stars in what we do, because this is so important. Forget a singer, forget a rapper, forget a dancer. When we talk about giving people back
Mm.
their lives, I don't know why we're not, you know, I don't know if we have to come together more as a medical community and more as friends and more as, but we should literally be the biggest things going when you talk about mental, physical, spiritual, emotional changes. And I,
Yeah,
I'm here to say, hey, once again, man, I've got a food problem, a mental health food problem. I'm trying to fight it. And as much as I make these TV shows on these conditions, I'm here fighting my own condition. So I'm hoping programs like yours can make a change.
it's a we started off singing that wonderful song about Buffalo Soldiers,
Hmm.
um, dreadlock rastas, and if you think about that song, right? Um, we need soldiers,
Yeah,
and we have a fight on our hands, and the fight is to get the mainstream
yeah.
to hear this message. And I actually had let me tell you what it's like to be a celebrity, since you want to throw us in that category. A couple of patients this morning, I saw. These are both 60 and 70-year-old or so African American females. One had lost 13 pounds since I had seen her.
Hmm.
Blood pressure was in the 160s, 170s. I didn't change one medicine.
Hmm.
And her blood pressure was down to 118 systolic.
Hmm.
She lost, it was just 13. You don't have to lose 100 pounds.
Hmm.
So I felt like a celebrity
Hmm.
because she was like, hey, you helped me do this. Then I had another one who came in after her, and she also had celebrated about a 20 3 or 4 pound weight loss.
Mm.
And it's so ironic. And her blood pressure, by the way, went from in the 150s and 160s down to 105.
Mm.
And we were talking about we got to reduce some medicine or something. You're gonna be lightheaded in a minute,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Now the irony is that she shared a picture, which I just pulled up on my phone. My phone was sleeping, and you probably can't see it, but
See it.
it's a picture of her daughter-in-law, and I think they're in Texas, right? But
Hmm.
if you look at the image,
Mm.
there's a buffalo in the background.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Now,
yeah.
now I just saw her the day we're recording, right?
Uh-huh.
And I said, "Wait a minute, I'm talking to a buffalo soldier today.
Ah,
What's the chances of that, right?" And
ah,
I just said, "This is too much." So I really thank her for making me feel like a star.
yeah,
And so
yeah,
I am in agreement that I'm not going to ever penalize anybody can fill a stadium. If you can fill a stadium, you should be compensated for
yeah,
that.
yeah,
But we don't value
yeah,
people who are literally going to make sure. Imagine if you didn't learn this. And I know before we started, I saw your son.
yeah,
Imagine if 10 years from now, your son didn't have his dad,
yeah,
or we didn't have your voice to help spread these messages of healing. So this is a big deal. And that's why I really feel that the work you're doing is important, because it's slightly different than the work I'm doing in terms of who it's reaching.
yeah,
And we're trying to get mainstream as much as possible. And I think, the places where your message is being heard is
yeah,
going to be really critical. So thank you so much for that. I do want to ask you,
yeah.
when you are diagnosed with diabetes
Mm,
and you're a young, handsome guy doing your thing,
mm,
right? So your perception of yourself may change. So when you got diagnosed with diabetes, what changed about how you perceive who Charles is as a man?
That's a good question. I was one of those guys, Tony, that was in the gym all the time. I didn't do cardio though. I had all these, lifting all of this stuff like that, and no cardio. And
Mm,
it really was humbling because I was uneducated to what diabetes was. So I thought that literally I was going to die. I went online, Tony,
mm,
and came home that night, and all the information I was getting, Tony, was just all the wrong information. And it felt like a lonely journey, and it's still one of those journeys, Tony. Diabetes affects every organ in the body, and so what it made me do is kind of look into myself and say, once again, that's why I have this purpose now. So as far as changes, as far as a man and how it affected me, it actually gave me purpose. It gave me purpose.
mm,
Realizing that I wanted to live for something else and tell my story and help other people too as well. So it's been a
mm.
blessing in many ways.
Love it.
It's been a blessing.
It's it's amazing how when we're faced with a challenge, that's when we become what the universe intended. It's like a challenge, right? So
Yeah,
I love that. And it's interesting, as I listened to you said, all the information was the wrong information. And I
yeah.
think about, oh yeah, let little guy do his thing. uh
Hey, I'm working.
if
Give
he
me a
needs to
minute,
join
man.
us, yeah, let him do it. We don't edit this stuff. We enjoy it. We doing this for our kids.
Yeah.
If you're
Huh?
listening,
Wait a second.
that's cool.
Hold on one second.
Yeah, do your thing. And while he's taking care of his son, which I love, I'm going to keep talking. It's
All
so
right, I'm
funny.
good. I'm good. I'm
No,
good.
we're good. And so think about this: wrong information, and then you find lifestyle. I know that even as a well trained clinician, I found lifestyle. They taught us in medical school, but I really found it via social media and YouTube. That's where I found Dr. Jason Fung and Dr. Ken Berry. right? So that's an amazing thought. So it's kind of sad to say that my medical training didn't really teach me, how to heal people. It taught me how to manage disease. And when I had Dr. Vivian Lowe, who was the guest for the podcast that precedes this one, she said that we were trained to do sick care,
Mm,
not health care.
mm.
Sick care. Imagine that, right? So it sounds like you were out here. So you actually learned about healing through nutrition on your own. You just literally, was it all just you searching, or did some clinician guide you in
Now,
that direction?
to be honest, just searching on my own. I mean,
Mm,
I initially was trying to figure out a diet, and I said, you know what? It was just so much miseducation. And to be honest with
mhm,
you, Tony, I went into one of them forums or one of them chat rooms, man, and them folks tore me up in there. And I said, man, I ain't going back in there again. And I said, you know
mm,
what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do God's diet. And so
mm,
I figured, you know what I would do? I've stopped totally going to the gym and change it from weightlifting to walking, and then from walking to doing some jogging. And I lost probably 20 pounds within almost 30 days, 35, 40 days.
mm,
And I just went to vegetables, lean meat, cut out all the stuff. I figured, a lot of obviously water, vegetables, and lean meat. And man, it was game changing. It was game. I remember putting on some clothes that I had in the closet, Tony, and they were falling off of me. And I said, you know what, this is the
mm,
way to go. So, and of course, once again, we keep educating ourselves, and
mhm.
so that's where we're at now.
That'll work, and I know that as you further educated yourself, you tweaked it a little bit,
Of
and
course.
you realize you didn't have to be. You meet some of these experts that you mentioned, and they will. You think about Dr. Jason Fung, and who'd have thought that not eating is the fastest way to reverse type 2 diabetes.
Yeah,
What person, what doctor would tell you not to eat? That sounds dangerous. And what most docs would say, well, if you don't eat, your blood sugar is going to go low. And Dr. Jason Fung would say, well, how about if we don't take the medicine that
exactly.
makes my blood sugar go low? And
Exactly.
that's an aha moment. And then Dr. Ken Berry, a carnivore. How in the heck is any doctor trained
Mm,
is going to say being a carnivore is okay? Now, you don't have to be a carnivore, but to have permission to be a carnivore,
yeah,
Dr.
yeah.
Ken Berry gives us permission.
Uh,
And then so now you can look at diabetes slightly differently. So I'm curious, when you heard these experts speak the language of keto and
yeah.
carnivore and intermittent fasting, what in the heck did your brain do? What went through your brain when you first started hearing those messages, which is kind of contrary to most nutrition. Most nutrition is plants and things of that nature.
Of course. Well, if you think about, especially with Dr. Jason Fung, I mean, if we look at back in the days, I mean, there are places right now, even in the Brazilian rainforest, where you might not eat for 2 or 3 days. You
Mm,
got to go catch something
right.
and eat it and kill it. If you're out in the jungle of Africa, whatever it may be, man, it ain't easy catching an antelope, brother. So
Mm-mm.
there are times, man, where you might go a day or two or three without eating anything. So, the
Mm,
fasting was something that made a whole lot of sense. I mean, let's face it. I mean, 3 meals a day, 6 meals a day. I mean, where did that come in? Where do you have society where we're eating 3, 4 meals, 5 meals a day? Um, and then you look at Dr. Ken, and Dr. Ken has science to back up the science. I mean, if you have a question regarding high
mm-hmm.
blood pressure or cholesterol, Dr. Ken breaks it down to the point where you're like, okay, that makes sense, and you're trying to figure out a way that it doesn't make sense, and that can't be right. But it does. But then, like I said, even from the show, we've seen how not only it worked on the guests, but how it's worked on myself. And so it was
Mm-hmm.
something that I once again, I wish I'd have learned this so much sooner. You're not going to
Mm-hmm.
walk into your
Mm-hmm.
your primary care physician and hear, hey, you know what? Why don't you try ketogenic for a little while and come back and see me in 3 months?
Mm-hmm.
Because when I was diagnosed, Tony, I had good health insurance. I was shocked. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
how am I diagnosed with type 2 diabetes? And I was going to see the doctor on a regular basis. Nobody saw anything in my blood work that made them say, hey, you know what, you need to do this or you need to do that. And
Mm-hmm.
initially, the guy who wasn't even my doctor, was just a walk-in clinic, said, I can put you on medication. And I thought, whoa, hold on now. You're
Mm-hmm.
telling me you don't even know me and you're ready to give me medication, and what I'm supposed to just take that medication and go about my business, not knowing what I needed to do to change this, or any diet, or things that I can do to heal myself. And how many of us
Mm-hmm.
just take that medication and go about our business? And now we're on 4 or 5 different medications for cholesterol, hypertension, whatever it may be. And that becomes our life.
Mm-hmm. Well, I got a I got a surprise for you. My wife shared this with me recently. She said, "I know he's a man, but he got PMS."
Yeah.
And I said, "Well, what do you mean by that,
Uh-huh.
honey? PMS? That's not. I didn't learn that in medical school." She
Uh-huh.
said he was trained to treat chronic diseases with procedures,
Mm.
medications, and
Mm.
surgeries. I said, "Oh, he does have PMS
Mhm.
syndrome." So that's what's wrong with healthcare,
Yeah,
is that too many of us got PMS.
that's
And
right.
it's really sad.
That's right.
And we have to do better.
Yeah.
And you shouldn't have to go to social media, YouTube, to learn how to heal. It just blows my mind. But again, I'm not blaming my clinical colleagues. It's just how
Yeah.
they've been trained. And so I just want to make sure we continue to teach the message
Yeah.
and learn the science. When I had Dr. Vivian Lowe on
Mm.
the last
Mhm.
episode,
Mhm.
a lot of people say, "Well, why? If I'm overweight, what's the issue?" And she said, "Well, it's inflammation. We all know obesity causes, inflammation that can get you trouble with your blood pressure, right?" Well,
Mhm.
she then said, "Well," and then this is when you become a doctor. She started breaking it down. She said, "Well, the fat cells, the adipocytes, they make the renin angiotensin, component system. So that's stuff that's going to cause constriction and things like that." So in other words, she broke down that if you have more fat cells, you're going to have more of this RAS, or renin angiotensin system, activated, and it's going to. So we can be scientific about it, but what's beautiful about this is that you don't have to be a scientist. If you follow this way of eating and living,
Mhm.
keep it simple, like we talked about earlier, you're going to heal. You don't have to know nothing about biochemistry. It's going to take care. The human body is very smart, and it'll do the work for you. So, and what you did, even before you start learning about keto and intermittent fasting, you start eating real food.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
got rid of the processed food and all that garbage. And I think that's
Exactly.
really helpful. So I'm curious about your, docu-series, and you know, putting stuff out there is not easy. I even heard Michael Moore talk about, just getting stuff out there. So, it's easier for the big guys and big name guys, right? But so what were the challenges that you face as you try to get the docu-series going? Any challenges that come to mind?
Yeah. Wow, Tony, I'm glad you asked that. And every day that I try to focus, especially focus on new conditions and new series that I want to do. Um, in our mind, we think, Tony, that everybody wants to get behind this, right? So when we
Mm,
look at a company and we say, man, we want to do something on diabetes, well, man, you would think that every company wants to get behind this. You think big pharma wants to get behind this. You think that
mm,
insurance companies want to get behind this. You think everybody wants to get behind this. When I want to do sickle cell, you think, man, they must be, they would be running out of the corners to get behind this. But then you realize, Tony, that this is a business. And almost
Mm,
9 out of 10 times of anybody that you try to contact is just a paid employee, man, that may be at that company for a year and then go off and do, they may go from sickle cell to cancer.
mm,
And they're just putting in the time. That your passion is not
mm,
always their passion, and that your hope to get
mm,
something out there is not in line with their marketing plans. Um, and I like to keep it real, Tony. Unfortunately, I'm sure a lot of people, don't like to hear some of the things I say, but I was looking at something. I look at Nick Jonas, and I'm like, I could only imagine how much they have spent paying Nick Jonas to push diabetes, right? I I could only
mhm,
imagine at least $15 million, if not more. And that money could have gone into so many different directions. When we look at the
mhm,
bicycle, right? They've got the Type One bicycle riders. I mean, the money that goes into that, and God knows they're probably doing some good work, but the money that goes into that is in the millions to sponsor bicycle riding for diabetes. Um, so when I look and I think, man, you know what, Charles, you got something here that can really educate, inspire, and also help bring in business for them. Because if we're able to identify new people with diabetes or new people that need to, let's face it, I hate to say, some people need medication for a little while. Um, it could do tremendous work. But
mhm,
unfortunately, this is a business, and the business of healthcare is just that. And preying on people to be sick
mm,
is key. And what we're talking about as far as reversing, I mean, Tony, you know how much slack I got from the word reverse. And I wasn't even talking about reversing
mm,
diabetes. I was talking about reversing the mental, physical, spiritual, emotional state
mm,
of a person that would entail them making proper changes. And people in diabetes would go after me because I said the word reversed.
mhm.
I mean, I'm
They
talking
can't deal with it.
writers and bloggers, man. I'm like, dude, what? Why are you attacking me? I'm trying to make some change here. So it is
Mm,
it's a
mm, mm.
it's a slope. It's a slope, brother.
Well, I'm glad you had the courage. It's the same courage I had to have when I wrote Fix Your Diet, Fix Your Diabetes, your dietary solution to reversing
Mm.
diabetes. I had to, and I put that in
Hey,
highlights.
woo,
I
reverse.
had to do it.
Talking
It took
reverse.
courage because I'm in a large health system, the 10th largest health system in the country. We follow guidelines, we follow, and you don't dare say reverse. I
Mm,
wanted to say cure,
mm,
but it's fair to say reverse because at least as long as you follow the plan, it will stay reverse. We can call it remission, whatever.
mm,
But ultimately, people getting off insulin, getting off of medicine. So I do appreciate you having the courage to do that, and I do thank you for clarifying season one of reverse. We're dealing with the mind.
mm,
Season two, we're dealing with the diet, and I'm gonna
mm,
tell you something.
mm,
I just wrote an article that should be on the Diet Doctor. I have a low carb corner, and we talk about how we think.
mm,
And I'll be honest, I always tell people nutrition is the most important. It's really tied with how we think.
mm, mm.
If
It
you
is.
if you if your mind not right,
Mm,
then none of this stuff will happen. None of this stuff will be good for you. So it takes courage to do what you did. I appreciate you, and I also want to comment on the money part. So follow the money. Now, if you're interested in understanding what the point of a study was, make sure you understand who paid for it.
mm,
So even when Dr. Jason Fung, Dr. Kim Berry, myself, when we're looking at studies, we say, well, who paid for the study? That's the first thing we do.
Mm,
Because at the minimum, you need to know if there's bias.
mm,
If you're going to vote for a politician who takes money from donors and
mm,
special interests, you need to know who those donors and special interests are, because 92% of their decisions will be based on that, not what
mm,
they say when they're standing on the podium.
mm,
That's just the world we live in.
mm,
And even in the healthcare arena, we get paid for sick care.
mm,
I want the health arena to change, as Dr. Vivian Lowe said in the last episode, to a world where we get paid to heal people.
mm,
Give me a bonus. Don't give me a bonus until I heal somebody.
mm, mm,
And then if we live in a world like that, there's no conflict of interest.
mhm,
Don't pay me just because I put somebody on a statin. Don't
mm,
pay me just because I put them on metformin. And pay me because they are getting off medicine, they're healing. And that's our what they call it, our
mhm,
true north. That's where
mhm,
we're trying to go with this. And again, we're going to spread this message until we reach more people. Now, one thing that I did to research you, besides listening to Bob Marley songs, one thing I did was I heard you have a conversation with On the Edge podcast host April Mahoney, and she
mm,
talked about her brother who
mm,
suffered from diabetes, and it was a striking story. It even kind of jolted me when
mm,
she talked about the amputations, because I've heard about amputations of toes,
mm,
and he had two fingers that needed to be amputated. But when she went down to the final thing,
mhm,
which was an amputation of his private part,
mm, mhm,
let's be clear, penis.
mm, mm.
I was I that jolted me. So when you were in that interview and she brought that to your attention, what emotions, what did you feel when she expressed what her family member had to go through?
Yeah, Tony, once again, if as bad as COVID is,
Mm,
if if COVID had diabetes numbers,
mm,
we wouldn't be outside right now.
mm,
We wouldn't be outside,
mm.
right? So
Not even
so
close.
and seeing people who literally are being chopped away. Um, it's a sad situation that we are in this situation, when especially
Mm-hmm.
with a couple of changes that could be made. And Tony, we're not talking, reborn. We're talking some simple
Mm-mm.
changes that didn't
Simple.
have to happen. That didn't have to happen. So it's been mind blowing. I've seen the worst of the worst from diabetes, the
Mm,
worst of the worst, and
mm-hmm. Yeah.
it takes more lives than AIDS and cancer combined. And it's a
Mm,
killer. And
yeah. And yeah, it's deep. And I just know that I'm just happy that we have an opportunity to share this message so that there'll be less people. I
yeah,
think once it really takes on a new life of its own,
yeah,
uh, it won't, those numbers that they predict, they will never happen. I am committed to making sure we never get those numbers of people, whether it's obesity or diabetes. Those numbers, will never come to pass. So but I'm going to shift us just a little bit, because we did take a moment to make a video.
yeah.
And that video honored your mom.
Oh, bless.
And we joked about how Mother's Day and Father's Days ain't the same.
Bless.
And it's all good. I think we feel love. And I know, as your son kind of, knocked on the door, we're going to do our dad thing. No matter what we get for Father's Day, we're going to do our thing.
Bless you.
So,
Bless you. Bless you.
it's a blessing. It is. So, but we talked about complex regional pain syndrome, and during that brief video, which we'll get out in a little bit,
Yeah.
you talked about your mom and what she went through. So I'm just curious, first of all, how's your mom doing? And then number two, what has that medical condition taught you?
She's hanging. I say this, Tony. She's about 80 years old, and she's a strong woman. She's a strong woman. I know as a man in his 40s, man, sometimes we wake up, man, and you know, thinking of another 40 years of the pains that we have to deal with at times, we can't even imagine, what it's going to be.
Mm,
So she's a strong woman,
mm,
and I admire her, and love her to death. It's not easy.
mm,
Obviously, her whole life was stolen and taken from her, but she's doing the best she can with what she's got. And
mm,
so that's and what it's taught me is, once again, resilience. And I hope God would
mm,
give, if anything ever happens to me in any form or fashion, that I have what some of these people with CRPS have, because I've heard some stories, Tony, that
mm,
would curl your toes of what these people have to deal
mm,
with every day. I'm talking, we're looking at CRPS
mm,
going into the stomach, where children can't
mm,
can't ever eat again, and they have to,
mm,
gastroparesis, right? If I'm saying it right, where
mm,
where they will have to eat food through a tube. Um,
mm.
this ain't fun. So, uh,
Yeah,
counting our blessings while we have them, brother, is key. You know.
yeah, yeah. I will say this. I will be blessed to speak at Low Carb USA in San Diego. I'll probably talk about when you're faced with challenges and you're trying to find another path. What do you do? So it's kind of right up the alley of this discussion. In other words, we won't give up on mom.
Yeah,
We won't, just because something hasn't been figured out
yeah,
doesn't mean it won't get figured out. So I
yeah,
think we'll chat more about that
yeah,
after this podcast, and just start thinking what's the next step.
yeah,
How, because you've done a lot to support her, you've gotten the message out, we've made a video, but
yeah,
what else can we do so we can
yeah,
provide some relief? So let's talk about that after the podcast. And
for sure.
I do want to ask you another thing that comes to mind as I think about how busy you are. And, you got a lot of pans in the fire, my brother. You're doing a lot of work, including your son, right, knocking on the door. So it's the nature of trying to find balance. And have you found ways to find balance? I mean, do you feel you're better at that, or you're still a work in progress?
I think I'm still a work in progress. I think that, I'm a single man, and taking care of, part time, taking care of three children, trying to, get these shows where they need to be, trying to stay healthy myself. Um, it's tough because obviously, you wish you had some help. You wish you had a partner here to help. You know, the day to day. But we keep pushing, you know, and keep praying that, it all works out and that we're able to to live another couple of years to be able to do what we do, and what we do is love to help people. So, um, it's a work in progress, brother. Yeah,
That'll work. Yep, it is, and I absolutely am still working on it. I have a leadership coach, and I believe that those types of things help. So maybe that's, I don't know if you're doing a coaching thing, but that may be a to do.
yeah,
Just have somebody to be accountable to, and
yeah,
and to provide some guidance. And
yeah.
but I was thinking about, as we're getting close to the end, I was thinking about, I was talking about your mom and celebrating her, and then I was like, oh yeah, he got a dad, so I don't want to forget
Well,
about dad after our
well,
conversation.
he passed away in 2016. So,
Tell me a little bit about his story, because I know you had shared some of his story too, and talk a little bit about his story as well.
he was a good father, and
Mm-hmm.
not too much of a story. He passed from cancer. Obviously,
Mm-hmm.
that's why it inspired me to create the docu-series that I had on cancer.
Yep.
Um, but he was a good father, and
Mm-hmm.
I think as a son, it's our responsibility to try to carry on their legacy in some kind of way, carry on that name. So, and he passed very fast. It wasn't one of those things, Tony, where he
Mm-hmm.
had cancer and all of a sudden you had months and months to try to figure out whether you're going to do this
Mm-hmm.
treatment or that treatment. It was literally he had cancer today and gone in 3 weeks. So it was one of those things where and it's ironic because I spoke to my aunt and not too long ago, and she said that I think she almost said is that as if he knew he already had it and hadn't gone to treatment or hadn't sought treatment. And I was like, wow. I mean, I don't know. I don't, I can't fathom what was going on, but um yeah, it led me to create that amazing series that we did on cancer that once again
Mm-hmm.
saw us be able to change lives and save lives with in our own way with people who are living with cancer. 5 people on the show, all are now no evidence of detection. Um, we did
Mm.
good work. So
Mm.
I try to allow and of course my uncle Bob Marley passed away from cancer. So it
Mm.
kind of was a twofold thing where I was like, you know what, this is my job to tell these stories. And Tony,
Mm-hmm.
real quick, as a gentleman, I want to do a series on sickle cell, and I think sickle cell is one of these ones that really just go without a voice, and it's sad because once
Mm-hmm.
again, there's
Mm-hmm.
big money flowing. I'm not asking for big money to do these
Mm-hmm.
shows. I'm not some big network. I get by and
Mm-hmm.
just do these shows because I love to help people. And there's a young man who's in the hospital right now, and it's unbelievable that they get little to no attention for sickle cell. And all I
Mm-hmm.
want to do, Tony, is just tell the stories. I just want to tell some stories.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm praying, Tony, that
Wow. Well,
we continue to be
mm.
able to do that. So
Well, I'll be honest with you. I know we're both African American. Well,
yeah,
men of color.
yeah, yeah.
You were you born in Jamaica?
No,
Amen.
I was
So I love
conceived in
that.
Jamaica. I was conceived in Jamaica.
You were conceived, but you spent most of your life in America.
Exactly, exactly, exactly.
Okay, cool. Just wanted to get a feel for that.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
but I'll say this: I was fortunate. I'm a family doctor, and I
yeah,
actually took care of kids. I mostly deal with adults now, but I took care of kids most of my career
yeah,
up until about 14 years ago when I transferred to or transitioned to Advocate Aurora,
yeah,
pretty much adult medicine, just to kind of get away from catching babies and doing that, just to have more life at home. But I took care of kids with sickle cell, and in the United States, it's really one out of every 400 or so African American births are, sickle cell, and it's also more common in Hispanics and going back to your ancestry, the Caribbean folk. So those are the populations that you think about the most. So I did take care of kids with that.
yeah.
So part of just like type 1 diabetes versus type 2, it's a numbers game because our culture is driven by money. You said that earlier,
Yeah.
right? So if am I going to make enough money on sickle cell to even bother
Hmm.
putting the research into it? So I think a lot of it is the money,
Hmm.
and I don't want to be, you just assume that maybe some of it is who is impacted, maybe, but we don't know. I just know money is probably the biggest factor.
Hmm.
So I just want to throw that out there. But we do have voices, and we need to lift our voices and share the messages. So I think what we do is we just do that, and then we push people in positions of
Yeah.
power to do research and to make change. So I appreciate that. So,
Yeah.
here we are towards the end, and I always ask about my nest and rope. We kind of talked a little bit about the nest, and that we talked about nutrition,
Mm,
because we talked about fasting and we talked about, keto, and we talked about the tea in the nest, which is how we think, right? So, and you can argue we talked about trauma
mm,
because we talked about the trauma that your mom experienced, the trauma that your dad experienced of getting cancer. That's all trauma.
mm.
And the E in the nest is exercise. You said you're exercising, stress and sleep. We didn't talk about much, but we got to take care of that. And then, we talked about the R. You said, well, I'm a single dad with
Mm,
relationships, right?
mm,
So we're going to make some phone calls for you.
mm. Uh-oh. Want to hook me
Uh-oh.
up?
That's right. I'm going to hook you up. And then, and we didn't talk much about, I don't think, organisms, which, we avoid things that can harm us. We talked a little bit about COVID indirectly. We
Yeah,
talked about the P, pollutants. That's what you put in your body. That's the environment we live in.
yeah,
And the E for life experience and protecting our emotions. So let's think about that nest and rope, and think about what parts of your life you're going to focus on over the next 12 months.
yeah, yeah.
What you think? Where are you going to give it some attention for yourself?
Well, Tony, I'm definitely, I've got a friend. She actually is a psychologist, and I reached out to her to just kind of, I think I need some help on as strong as I think I am, Tony, as far as this food
Mm,
addiction.
mm-hmm.
I think I
Yep.
need just a little bit of help.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard for men to admit that, hard for people to
Yeah.
admit that.
Mm,
But I want to conquer that. Um,
mm-hmm.
I want to focus on, once again, Tony, I think that I've made some, I got a colonoscopy coming up in the next couple of days.
Mm,
I
mm-hmm.
want to, kind of, I look back, Tony, and I'm like, what choices did I make that have me,
Mm-hmm.
number one, Tony, I want to lose about 20 pounds. Um,
Mm,
I'm kind of built, but I mean, I want to slim down. Um, I want to totally just get really clean, Tony, and hope that some of the
mm,
choices that I made in the past don't catch up to me. Because we could feel our bodies. I was playing soccer with my son today, and I just felt
mm-hmm.
sluggish. And I felt like, man, you know what?
Mm,
Number one, I need to
mm-mm.
get this weight off. I need to, I shouldn't feel this is not me. This is not me. And we're not spring
Mm-hmm.
chickens anymore, but I know that I could do better. So yeah,
Yeah, that's fair. And I think as you think about all those components of that acronym, you just kind of see where you have gaps and you work on it. I This week is a perfect example.
yeah,
I kind of had a couple of days where I didn't go to bed on time, and then but you'll feel it the next day.
yeah,
So
yeah,
to the extent you can control it, if you got a deadline, you got a deadline. But if you can control it, I want you to look at those different components, and I think you're going to do well.
yeah,
And
yeah,
but what I know for sure is that the messages of healing that you're sharing, you are doing well, and I really appreciate that. So let's wrap up, and let's make sure,
yeah,
how do I'm going to share links, of course, to your books and
yeah.
the work you've done. But any final thoughts, and what's the best way for people to kind of find you?
I thank you. My final thought is thanking you, Tony, because we once again, I hope we continue to try to push what we're doing because we should, like I said, be the rock stars of health. And yeah. So as far as finding me, people can go to my website, which is pretty much my name, which is charlesmattocks.com, CharlesMattocks.com, and then also Bella and Ellie Media.com, Bella and media, media.com. And of course, you can find me on social media, on Instagram and things like that. And we're working on a couple other projects, Tony, and I'm praying that they all turn out right. It ain't easy. But you know what, Tony, I
Mm,
don't mind. And I used to say this: does somebody mind if Charles is begging? If somebody's in a hospital right now
Mm,
going through hell, they don't mind that I have to go and do what I have to do to get them some exposure. So I have to do what I have to do out here sometimes, Tony. It ain't easy, but it's for the good cause. If I got to go out in a G string and stand
mm,
on the corner to
mm,
expose, bring some light and attention to, let's say, sickle cell, which needs some serious exposure, I'm gonna go ahead and do it. I'm gonna take that for the team.
mm, mm.
So thank you, Tony, for having me, brother.
Yeah, it was my pleasure. I'm so happy I discovered you. I think it was on Twitter, and just appreciate the work that you're doing. I think some of my low carb colleagues were liking or doing something with you. And but let me say this, I just appreciate you. And again, I think I'm very optimistic about the future. And it takes, it's a you have to it's almost like a revolution. It's almost like you got to get to the get a group of people together, and we just build a movement. So we're going to keep doing that. And thank you so much. So you are appreciated, and I want to thank you. So I'm gonna give
Bless.
you. I'll give you a Black Panther. How
Yes.
about that?
It
All
takes
right,
a revolution to
that's.
make a solution. Yes.
I love it. Thank you, and thank those who are enjoying this episode, and I really look forward to the great work Charles will be doing in the future. And we kind of started this podcast as we've ended it with a song,
Yeah.
and it's music to my ears to know that we
Yes.
have people on the planet who are dedicated to making our world a better place. And today we heard from a
Yes.
soldier on the front lines here to remind us that diabetes and many chronic medical conditions can be reversed. And we're not afraid to use that
No.
language, reverse. And I'm so thankful for his message of healing, and only ask that you share this message as well. There are so many people who simply need hope, a better life. So let's all work together as soldiers, Buffalo soldiers, I may add, against the war against metabolic dysfunction. So, again, my brother, I thank you again
Yes,
for
brother.
joining us for this episode. And for all those who are listening, be safe, be well, and continue to protect your nest.